This is Rethinking the Mundane with Jo and Lex.
Where a creative technologist and industrial designer looks at everyday objects, questions its purpose, tries to repurpose it, or we just leave it alone. And today we are going to talk about the light bulb.
The light bulb.
There's one right here, but it's not on camera.
Yeah, that one's the one. There's one here. It's very bright.
It's very bright. That gives us the lovely lighting that we have to record this in the back of the Marama studio in Hackney. Yeah, the light bulb is an interesting one because, you know, my relationship with electricity and light is an interesting one because obviously here in London we have the national grid, we have that's, I don't know if it's privatized, right? So you pay your energy bills to God knows these different companies. But I also have my Nigerian heritage, and there is a thing about our Nigerian heritage. For those who might be Nigerian listening to this, is that there is a public body called NEPA, which I actually don't know what it stands for, but there is a term growing up where it's like NEPA has taken the light. So we have a lot of blackouts. And if you have a generator, you get your generator, and then you have to buy fuel for your generator and that particular stuff. So my relationship with light has been London. Okay, I get light all the time as long as I keep my metric key and whatever. But night is depending on whatever happens. So the light bulb is it's an interesting one that it can be easily taken for granted as a tool.
Yeah.
But in other parts of the world, they probably don't have the same experience with light in terms of the light bulb as a mundane object, because they've had to make other ways of coexisting, or light being a limited factor depending on time of day and stuff. So that was just something I wanted to start off with, was just that, the light bulb itself
It's interesting because exactly what I was going to say, that we take it for granted. And so, brief history: it was invented in like the 1800s, not by Thomas Edison, but was commercialized, I think, by Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
And the thing that really changed with the introduction of lighting, before they had kind of electric light bulbs, then from a city or a town perspective, they were using gas lighting a lot for street lamps. And the really important thing that is brought by artificial light is a sense of safety. So there's kind of, I would say, like a few things, but especially as a woman in a big city, there's a big difference between walking around down a dark street and there's walking down a light street. And I think that's kind of true for most people. Historically, just imagine that you blew the candles out before you went to bed. There would be not a single house, maybe the baker who would be up at the middle of the night, but other than that, maybe a little fire burning in a hearth somewhere, but other than that, no light, pitch black every night. All the things that could happen, all of the affairs that were taking place. But then you come along with this way of producing relatively safe anyway, and relatively low cost light, and it just kind of completely changes the Western world. And then obviously you've still got countries in Africa and even parts of South America where they don't, like you say, it's still a luxury.
Yeah.
And kids are coming home from school, but they don't have any light to do their homework by.
Yeah.
Productivity sort of ends when the sun goes down. So from sort of 5:30, 6 onwards, there's not much that can be done in your home. So, but then suddenly bringing the light bulb in and having that source of light, and you've got a potential for working, potential for studying, opportunity for like just being together as a family, other forms of entertainment. There's so many things that are brought by such a simple object. But then you got the other end of the spectrum. Another fact for you: lighting accounts for 15% of all electricity consumption worldwide.
15.
15, yeah, percent.
And then I have a stat here that says modern incandescent bulbs are not energy efficient. Less than 10% of electric power supplied to the bulb is converted into visible light. The remaining energy is lost as heat.
So that's why obviously LEDs are such a big thing, because they're like way more efficient. And I think if we were to switch all of the sort of incandescent lighting or all of our lighting over to LED, we would save a phenomenal amount of carbon emissions. I think around 5% of all carbon emissions worldwide are related to light.
Oh, wow.
To light, artificial lighting, which is huge. But then if you think about taking that away and all the things you'd lose, I mean, think about the northern Norway right now in the middle of winter, getting to the point where the sun's hardly rising above the horizon. So they're in a permanent state of darkness and completely reliant on artificial light.
And where would you say LED technology is at this point in terms of being able to power?
The LED technologies, I am not an expert. I will just caveat that. So I will base it on my limited knowledge and maybe some assumptions. But the technology has it's improved hugely. And one of the things about LEDs, at least historically, was the quality of the light. It was very white, and that really put people off because it felt really unnatural. You didn't want to be under an LED light for a long period of time. Maybe it was good for sort of an office environment. You can be quite productive. There's quite a lot of blue spectrum in there, but then especially at home, you wouldn't want that kind of lighting in your home. But that's changed. There's all kinds of different colors of LED light now, so you can have a much warmer yellow light or a sort of blue, more sort of focused, productive light. And then obviously you've got things like the Philips Hue, where you can completely control.
I really want one.
I've got one in my home.
You got one?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
We've had them for years. It's one of those things that I just on a whim bought, probably one Black Friday or something. And it's great. Yeah, because you turn the lights down now when you're watching the movie.
Do you use an app?
I've got the app, yeah.
And is that powered by LED lights?
Yeah, so that's like a full spectrum.
Okay.
And so you can have all the colors. I mean, some of the ones you get, I think they're just yellow or to maybe white, and you can just go up and down. But this one's like full spectrum, so I can have a jungle theme. I don't even know what that means, but it's like one of them goes purple and one of them goes green, and it creates this sort of like gradient across the kitchen. But yeah, no, it's good fun, and I think it's like the next step, isn't it, on understanding our relationship between light, wellness, sleep, routine, circadian rhythm, and like the more we now know about it, because we've filled our lives full of light and we have the ability to keep a room almost as bright as daylight up until 11, 12, 1 in the morning. But that's just messing with our sort of natural sort of cycles of sleep and wake.
I struggle with the light in my house. Like, so I'm very light sensitive. So what happens is, like, at home, like, there's like, I think I've definitely got LED lights, but like they like I've got like this really big living room, kitchen, hallway area, but the light is so bright, just bright. It's like bright. It's like no one used to sleep, and and there's been that interest about, like, you know, obviously mood lights. That's something that we don't have much. Like, it's not custom. I'm interested in that. I don't know how much you know about mood lighting, or is that more of an expensive way to maintain and stuff? If you had lighting that could adjust to moods, just to deal with different types of, you know, sensitivity, or, you know, obviously you have the Siemens Hue. And yeah, I don't know, like, what's your headspace in terms of just like things like mood lighting, that,
It's There's definitely lights available that change throughout the day, so
Yeah.
like will automatically sort of dim in the evenings. I think on the Hue you can potentially set certain timers, maybe with the newer ones. Um, if not, they should probably put that in. But the thing that I think was really apparent was when during lockdown everyone was working from home,
Yeah.
and then it got to towards the winter, and and you would be having a meeting at say 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening,
Yeah.
and everyone would be at home, and everyone would be in their like living rooms, and the lighting was like really dark because you all had those like some people didn't even have like a main light in the living room. They would just have sort of, as you say, mood
No
lighting
mood
around the
light. Yeah.
corner or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
floor lamp,
Yeah.
and everyone would, and it would just be really dark, and they'd just the light from their screen would be light in their face.
Face. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think people realized that wasn't a viable way to work,
Yeah.
and you needed to have like a more productive light, a light to kind of keep you awake as much as anything, because you get to that you're sat on your sofa in lockdown with your laptop on your lap with nothing but like a a small lamp on in the corner, and everything is just saying chill out time now. um, and so people invested then in sort of daylight lamps, getting lamps that created like something that was almost as bright as the daylight, keeping them awake
Yeah.
and stuff. But I think there's nothing more. It's not expensive necessarily. Some of the LED bulbs are like more expensive, but they last for such a long time.
Yeah.
Such a long time. So it makes a lot more sense to be using those kinds of bulbs. And the challenge, I guess, is what we do with them after, because I haven't actually
Yeah, that's a
taken them
very
apart.
good question.
But you know, like you
What actually happens
always
to
feel
bulbs?
bad, right, for taking a bulb and putting it in the bin.
What actually happens? Because I guess the material, right, is glass.
We take an incandescent bulb. Obviously, you've got the glass and you've got the metal bit at the bottom, and then you've got the filament.
Filament.
But obviously, that's quite a small amount of material.
Is it made by plastic, metal? The metal, I don't know.
So there's the metal there. I don't think there's no reason for them to have plastic components in, or much plastic in them.
Yeah.
With the LEDs, however, there's a lot more going on.
Okay.
And so they last a lot longer. So by comparison, I think it's better, because you might have like 5, 6, maybe even 10 incandescent bulbs for the same lifetime as one LED bulb. But I still don't have a good answer for what happens at the end of life, or what should be happening at the end of life for these materials, because there's a lot. I mean, we all know where to put batteries, even if we don't do it. Most supermarkets have a battery collection. You know where to go to put them. You feel bad about putting them in the bin. But with a light bulb, I mean, hopefully someone can listen to this can tell us.
I actually don't know. What happens to light bulbs? How do you recycle light bulbs? I never thought about that. It's interesting because as you've been speaking, I've been trying to, because a light bulb is something I suggested, but it's something I know very little about. But I'm seeing here where there was an institute for industrial engineering where they created they use LED lights to develop virtual sky panels. So the idea was to replace ceiling panels in offices, and this light lace models mimic the sky, giving the workers the sense that they're in an open wide field.
I think I've spoken to, maybe not these guys, but a similar company, and it's really cool because it really does look like a slightly frosted panel of glass that's a gateway to the actual sky. And you look up at it, and it changes ever so slightly, not to sort of mimic clouds, but to mimic the changing of the position of the sun, the idea that there's a slightly warmer light in the mornings and in the evenings, and a slightly brighter light in the middle of the day. And to sort of give you that natural cycle. Obviously, it then doesn't set at 3 or 4 in the winter, so it makes your day feel the full length. But they're really expensive.
Oh wow! Okay.
But you then have to think about what the cost of productivity is, and if you think how, obviously, like a huge amount of money goes into to places where work and performance is important. So no doubt in an Amazon warehouse they have absolutely nailed the lighting. you've got people coming in who are doing a shift in the middle of the night. They've I can imagine there's plenty of studies that have been done on human performance in different types of lighting.
And then that piece as well that I just wanted to mention was, I guess, energy sources, right? We've spoken a lot about energy sources in some of our previous, episodes. And I guess now the role of solar being able to power LED lights. Like there's this example here as well from Philips where they had a solar powered LED car sunroof. The drivers could flip a switch to choose between a normal clear sunroof or a solar powered light that illuminates the car's interior. And so it just made me think about solar power. And I think, I know, like I was talking to Rich, Bismarck Kamizi, and he mentioned that back home in Nigeria, his dad has solar power instead, the power, like the family home that he built out there. And that was an interesting thing. And it's like, okay, cool, but what is, if we're using solar power to light fluorescent, incandescent light bulbs, then we've just defeated the purpose. But I guess there's an opportunity or a future opportunity to have power source from the sun that could power these LED lights, which are 8 times more energy efficient. And we can also change our energy source. But I feel like I don't know how far. I think the solar movement is still something I've been hoping to kick off. I know there's like interesting companies who are trying to do more around that and stuff. But what about solar in the role
of
being a
very briefly for a company, you'll like this. It's still called Gravity Light.
Oh wow.
And so they basically created a light that's powered by gravity, which sounds mental, right? So it's basically got a pulley and you lift a weight. I think it was like 10 kg or 15 kg or something. You lifted it up, and over the period of 30 minutes, it dropped very, very slowly, and there was a series of gears that turned that movement and that weight and that leverage into electricity, which powered a light bulb, an LED light bulb. And so after 30 minutes, it would get to the bottom, the light would turn off, you would just lift it back up again. And the goal was to give this basically completely free energy source, light source, to people in parts of they were focusing very much on parts of Africa where they were completely off grid, completely reliant on things like gas or some sort of oil to create light and heat in the home, and being able to break away from the ongoing expense of that would allow them to allow people to save a little bit of money. And the intention was that this would then break that cycle and allow them to save up and buy a solar panel. And so it was a buy one, gift one sort of model. So my dad had one for a while. He still got it, of course, because it still works. And he has it in the shed because he only needs the light for a small amount of time, opens the door, lifts the light up,
Sorry.
lifts the weight, and then he's got a light in his shed for half an hour. I think they've moved on now to create a model that uses a pulley, but it's the same sort of system. So it's like a dynamo, you pull in something, it's charging something, and then you've got the light. But it's really interesting. It was very interesting sort of working a little bit on that project and understanding the importance and what that meant for people who are off grid. And it again makes you realize how much you appreciate light. You don't strike me as the kind of person that goes camping, but I like to camp. And obviously then you're sleeping out, you don't have electricity, but you always take a little lamp light with you, and it's just how long the battery lasts, whether you remember to charge it up. But one of the main lights we use is a little solar powered one. But you obviously then realize how not only do we have light, but how efficient that light is in lighting up the whole space.
Yeah.
That we're in, that we're moving around. I mean, there's not a corner of this office. Okay, the sun's just coming down. When it gets dark, there's still not a corner of this office that is dark. You know, we've got lighting in every part of this space. Whereas when you're camping in the middle of nowhere, you've got the beam of light either on your head torch or on your torch or on a little lantern, and it reaches maybe a couple of meters in front of you, and that's it. The rest is just complete dark.
Yeah.
But we don't. I mean, we live in the city. Have you ever been? Unless you close your eyes, I guarantee your flat's not completely pitch black.
When I turn off the lights, it kind of is. But then we have,
Street light.
But I live right by the River Thames, and where I live, this is an interesting thing we haven't even talked about light pollution. You know, that's an interesting thing because, like, unfortunately, I moved to a really lovely apartment that, you know, it's high rise, got a good view, but because I live so close to the River Thames and right across from the City London Airport, they didn't build any other high rise buildings around it because of airport restrictions. So the light pollution is actually not intense. And that for me was the view. And it's interesting when we talk about views, because one thing about London and Londoners in a way is somebody might show you a view and it's like you just see loads of buildings with just so much light. And I remember having this thing where I was like, this ain't a view. That's not a view. Obviously, because I've been biased, I've lived in where I can see the River Thames. I don't see no high-rise buildings because you can't. And I just see some trees. Maybe sometimes you see a plane fly. London City Airport's really small as well. So it's not. And I was like, we tend to sometimes approach the viewpoints as this is a great view, and you just see all these lights, and then the light pollution, and then yet we don't get to see the stars.
Do you know what? I was lying in a tent because I love camping.
Yeah.
Looking up at the stars earlier this summer, and I was thinking how much light pollution there is, not just from the earth, but from the sky. You can see every satellite. I know that this is reflection of the sun. I'm aware that this isn't just a giant light bulb in space, but talking about light pollution. Some of it is because some of it's planes. But the idea that there's just like more and more light pollution, and that if you took a photograph of the night sky, yes, you're going to get to the point where Elon Musk has put so many satellites in space that you've got more satellites and stars. But yeah, again, I'm aware that that's not just giant lights in the sky.
And that's an interesting one. I never talk, because now some of the next steps I remember, because even when I was talking about my house the other day, I saw at late night like a Pepsi projection light ad.
An ad?
Yeah. On a. Oh God, I have to find his pictures to show you as part of.
Yeah, I guess it's the thing with flight is it really gets your attention. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and like had a Pepsi. I was trying to capture the right picture.
There you go.
Yeah, he's got like a Pepsi light, and then I went to Google it to see who's the agency that did this. And when I was trying to Google, I saw like Pepsi had ideas where they wanted to project adverts into the night sky.
Oh, like the Batman.
Yeah, like the
signal.
Batman signal. Yeah. And so the night sky is still an area that we haven't capitalized.
I mean, we could
yet on. We might have to have another episode about.
Yeah, the night sky.
The night sky.
We're gonna have to so much talk about. I mean, I've even just started thinking about like the potential of what light means and all the different spectrums of color. And obviously, historically, the only way to make light was with fire. The sun in the daytime, which is again just fire.
Yeah.
And now we've got this whole other spectrum of color of light. The idea of what those colors mean and how they're used. Green lights, red lights. Christmas lights,
Hmm.
warning lights, search lights. I mean, there's just unbelievable number of light, amount of light, and probably too much light in our lives.
Okay, so I guess this concludes part one
Of us talking about light-related
of
topics.
light-related topics and light bulbs.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching, listening, seeing us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.